I'm Gertie, and welcome to a new episode of Gertie's World here on YouTube. This month, I am bringing you something that you have requested from me before. This is a 40s-inspired hair scarf tutorial. So these are super easy to make. It's really just a rectangle, but I'm going to show you how to give it a cool little fringy edge that won't fray any further when you wear it. So I'm going to show you how to sew it, and then at the end I'll show you how to style it on your head. So these are great. They obviously give you a very sort of dramatic, eccentric older woman vibe, very Gloria Swanson, Sunset Boulevard kind of vibe going here. So if you're trying to cultivate that kind of image, which I know I am, then this should help you out. Okay, so let's talk about fabrics. The best fabrics for this project are going to be things that are somewhat loosely woven. So even cotton broadcloth, like quilting cotton, could work well. But if you're looking for something with a little more drape, gauze is a really great fabric. So I found this rayon gauze from B&J Fabrics. I will link you to this. And also a cotton gauze could be a nice alternative as well. You can see it has a nice little texture to it. Basically what you're looking for something is that at the cut edge, see if you can pull off little threads from the fabric if they pull away easily. That will mean it's slightly loosely woven rather than tightly woven. And that's what we're looking for. We want to be able to pull those little threads away, and you'll see why later. The one that I'm wearing is made from a wool challis, which is another great option. I made it to match this brunch coat. So you could look for a wool challis, a rayon challis. These are all great options. A few other things you'll need to have on hand: tweezers, just your normal beauty tweezers are fine. Some nice sharp shears, your sewing machine, and you'll just want to have it threaded with thread to match whatever fabric you're going to use. And make sure that your needle is nice and sharp and that it matches the weight of your fabric. So if you're using a thin fabric like this rayon gauze that I'm going to use, you want to make sure to have a really small needle in there. So I used size 60/8, which is a great small size for this. All right, so let's get started cutting out our fabric. Okay, let's talk dimensions for your scarf. So the rough dimensions that I found work for me are about 54 to 60 inches long for my scarf by at least 12 inches high. Okay, and the easiest way to manage this with your fabric is to find a fabric that is at least 54 inches wide so that you can just cut one width from selvage to selvage. Okay, if you do find a fabric that you really love, you want to make a scarf out of, but it's 45, I would recommend cutting 2 lengths and then seaming it down the center where it's going to go down the back of your head. Okay, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be working with a 54-inch wide rayon gauze. Okay, so you can see one selvage here all the way to the other selvage. So nice and wide, and we'll be able to get one hair scarf out of half a yard. Okay, so that's all I ordered when I ordered these fabrics online. And I started to cut this, or to tear it, but I wanted to wait to show you how to do the whole thing. So what I did was, here's a selvage. I measured 12 inches down, right? And then I cut a little snip into the selvage and started to tear the fabric. Okay, so this is the easiest way to make your basic scarf piece, is to just tear it. Now, you may find that your fabric doesn't tear that easily, in which case you're going to need to draw a really nice straight line and cut along it. Okay, not every weave of fabric is going to tear that easily. Okay, so here I have a 12 by 54 inch wide piece of fabric. And I will say, if you're in a rush, you can really just tie this around your head. And I have done it before when I wanted a certain hair scarf. But the thing is, it's going to keep shedding threads like this, and we don't want that, right? So I'm going to show you this really fun little finish for your scarf. Okay, so let's look at your selvages. We want to get rid of these selvages because I want to show you how to do a little finished edge on all sides. So I'm going to see if I can just tear this here. Yep, I'm just going to tear away each selvage. And same thing on the other end. Now, if you're going for a more rustic look, you could just leave your selvage on there. That's totally fine. These ends usually get pinned in when you wear your scarf anyway, so that's something you can certainly do. But I'm going to show you how to finish all 4 sides. Okay, so just trim away any of these crazy threads here. And the next thing we're going to do is stitch around the entire rectangle using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So you can start at one corner here. And I am going to find my 1/2 inch seam allowance mark on my sewing machine. I'm going to start about 1/2 inch in. And I have my stitch length at 2.5. Okay, so I'm going to start stitching here. And I'll back stitch. And you may see that I'm using a light pink thread. That's because I want you to be able to see my stitching when we go to do the next steps. But you would want to use a thread that's going to blend perfectly with your fabric. Okay, so I'm just stitching along one short end here at 1/2 inch seam allowance. When I get 1/2 inch away from the long edge, I'm going to stop with my needle down, lift up my presser foot, and swing the fabric around. That's called pivoting if you're new to this, and continue stitching along this side. So I have a lot of stitching to do, obviously. I'm going to go all the way around all 4 sides and meet up with my previous stitching where I started. So I'm just going to keep going with this. Okay, here I am meeting up with my stitching where I started. So I just back stitched again, and now I'm going to trim away my threads. And now we're going to create that fringy edge. And I will say, just, you know, be patient with this part of the process, because it does take a little while to pull out all these little threads. So what you're going to do is take your tweezers and you're going to start pulling away in these seam allowances here. You're going to start pulling away one thread at a time. And I'm sure this sounds crazy, but it's really fun actually to sit and do this. So you're just going to get in there and pull out the next thread. You can kind of see, it's really fun to see the threads start to pull away and that you're going to get this cool looking fringe on the edge. So this is one of those things that you are going to sit and maybe watch a TV show while you're working on this, and you're just going to keep pulling these threads away. And I promise you, it's super fun. Okay, so just keep going with this. You're going to pull away all of your threads in the seam allowance. When you get to your stitching here, you're not going to be able to pull any more threads, okay? Because that little line of stitching is going to keep your fabric from unraveling any further, which is what we want. Okay, so do both the long ends, and then you're going to do the same thing on the short ends, just pulling away. And if your fabric is super loosely woven, you might be able to just grab it with your fingers. But I found the tweezers worked really well on especially like the wool challis on the one I'm wearing. Okay, so obviously I have a lot of work to do here. I'm going to be pulling away my threads. So are you. And I will see you when we're on the way to the next step, which is tying it around our heads. Okay, so I got as far as I can on this little corner here. So I did want to show you how it's going to look when finished. So you can see it's a really cute little fringe. And, you know, obviously, like I said earlier, your stitching will blend in, so you won't even see that line of stitching. And the last thing you can do is like give it a little press with the iron. It's just kind of press that outward to just kind of make that fringe look really cute. But it's a very cute little look. Now, I do realize that that's a lot of work, and it can be more work depending on how tightly woven your fabric is. The wool challis was super easy. It took me about half an hour. This one's taking a little bit longer. So if you watched that technique and thought that I am just crazy and you're never going to do this, I do have a machine alternative for you. So I have set my machine to a zigzag stitch. It's about 2.5 wide by 3 millimeters long. And what you can do is just put the scarf into the machine like this and align that cut edge with the center of your presser foot. And so what's going to happen is you'll be zigzagging on the fabric and then slightly off the fabric. So the zigzag should wrap around the edge. This is called a picot edge. So this is a traditional picot edge. And then what you would need to do is go and trim away any loose threads like that. But you'll see this is a really cute little finish too that will keep your edge from unraveling. So that's a faster finish, obviously. Okay, so those are 2 finishes for your hair scarf. Okay, so let's talk about how to tie your hair scarf. I like to do a really simple bow with mine. It looks probably a lot more complicated than it is because people always ask me how I tie it, and it's really just a simple bow. If you have a longer scarf, then you can get a little more complicated with it, but I really like this simple bow, so I'm going to show you how I put it in. So let's take this one out. Oh, and we should talk about hairstyles too. So I really love the look of the side comb with the center part and curls. I did this with pillow rollers. This is a very 40s Vivian Lee look. You can also do bumper bangs with a rat. That's kind of like a Barbie-inspired look. You could also do a side swept bang across your face. So there's a lot of different things you can do. An updo would be really fun with your hair scarf. So play around with it. Have fun. All right, so you're going to take your hair scarf that you just made and thread it underneath your hair, like so. And you're going to tie it on top of your head. And I like to get these ends kind of covering my ears a little bit, the long sides. Okay, so tie a knot, just one on top like that. And now you're going to, remember how you learned to tie your shoelaces, just make a very distinct little bunny ear and wrap the other end around your bunny ear. And now you're just going to play around with shaping the loops here. So there are a few things that you can do. You can, I mean, why not? Just have a huge bow on top of your head. But if you want, and this looks really cute too with these little fringy ends, but if you want a more polished 40s style look, you're going to want to take those ends and loop them behind the bow and just bobby pin them in place. Okay, so just get behind there so that you don't have any short ends sticking out. You can do the same with the front. You can pin it in place. You can also take these loops and create sort of like a fan shape. And this is where you get more into that Gloria Swanson fantasy. You know, if you have like a fan sort of shape here and then pin it back. And I find that that's easier too if you have a longer length. So once you get into making hair scarves, I would say try making, 90 inches long so that you can really play around with the loops and pinning them in place. But that's really all there is to it. So if I wanted to get more of, again, a Gloria Swanson look, I could kind of pull this loop out a little bit more and create a little fan like that, pin it in back if I wanted to, pin those to the back. And if you really want to go full Carmen Miranda, you can start pinning hair flowers in here too. So a little hair flower over here. I reserve that for special occasions. But this is pretty much it. It's really fun to make hair scarves to match all your handmade ensembles. I hope that you love this little tutorial, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.